All right, welcome to the Sharp Mind Show, episode 94. I'm Nate, the Fit Future MD, your host. Be sure to shop at InstaSale.com and pick you up a cool, inspirational t shirt today. All right, well, the Panthers season came to an end this weekend. The Panthers fall to the Rams 34-31, right? And so, analyzing this game, last game of the season, obviously I felt like the Panthers overachieved this year with the pieces they had in place. Obviously, our defense balled out this year. They definitely were a lot better this year than, well, obviously, we had the worst defense in the league the previous year. So for them to come in and be a top 10 defense, that's definitely something to be proud of. That change, obviously, you know, definitely had a big impact there. Um, I will say at the end of this game, specifically Los Angeles Rams, that we had two players out, J.C. Horn being one of them. And obviously, that was, when we had Jackson and Horn in, it was a little bit better against Nakua and Adams, but couldn't hold both of them down with one of our best corners being out. So, um, that being said, we'll talk about the Panthers' offense here. They got Bryce Young throwing 40 times. Obviously, that's not our winning scenario here. We did have, he put our team in a position to win, 264 yards, touchdown interception, but we just can't. Um, we ran the ball 22 times. Hubbard got 13 of those carries for 3.5 yards a carry. Not very good. Dowdle got 5 rushes for 9 yards. Dowdle, obviously dominated this year, so I'm not sure, why, he wasn't used more in this game. Um, I think he could have destroyed the Rams. Just my opinion. Obviously, Coker had a big game, nine receptions, 134 yards, and a touchdown. The go ahead, touchdown late. But at the end of the day, we got the touchdown, and it was 2 minutes, 40 seconds left, something like that, and that was just too much time left on the clock for Matthew Stafford. 4 point lead going to the end, and you know, we were we unfortunately are playing a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback, Matthew Stafford, that was gave him too much time, and he was able to capitalize and get a touchdown there to win the game for the Rams. Um, but let me know what you guys think about the Carolina Panthers season. We were 8-9 going in, so now 8-10. Lost to the Rams. Was this a satisfactory? They call it the second year of the rebuild, but this is Bryce Young's third season, so I call it the third year of the rebuild. Basically, you add a couple more pieces and you might be, really well off next season is basically the idea. Let me know what pieces you think the Carolina Panthers need to add to become a better team. And we'll move on to the next topic. This episode is brought to you by Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, which is my wife's children's book. So if you got nieces, nephews, or children of your own, be sure to check out Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins. Available on Amazon and written by best-selling Amazon author Meredith Dillon Johnson. All right, so the national championship is next week for college football. Indiana and Miami are going to play for that national championship. And so we got a tale of two different teams here to get to the national championship. Miami, you know, didn't blow out their opponent, but beat their opponent each time. There's no SEC opponent, in the national championship this year. With all this, with them having the most teams, the most chances to win here, They did not make it. Miami beat Ohio State. They beat Ole Miss. You know, to get in. So I'm going to check them out here. Obviously, the Miami Hurricanes are a little bit more of a traditional offense. They ran the ball 51 times against Ole Miss. Um, and I mean, even Carson Beck threw 37 times. So they just had the time of possession like by a lot there. But Carson Beck is a traditional drop back passer, but he actually ran the ball in. I think, yep, ran the ball in for the win against Ole Miss. So he can run the ball. It's just, he's traditionally a drop back passer. Um, Malachi Tony obviously had a big game. Marion had a big game for them. Obviously, they'll be trying to get Ole Miss will be trying to get another year of eligibility for Trinidad Chambliss. But Miami for being the last one in they give them the 10 seed, but they're basically the last one chosen. They're chosen over Notre Dame to get in, and they'll be in the national championship game. Now, Indiana, on the other hand, they've been blowing people out. They blew the Oregon Ducks out. It was pretty much a dominant performance, 38-7 in the first half. They really could have just, closed the game right there. But once again, time of possession, Mendoza apparently has more touchdowns than incompletions in this postseason here. So they've just been kind of dominant. But you can clearly see that, if you're getting 4.6 yards a carry and having 40 carries, you're not going to lose a football game doing that, right? So Indiana Hoosiers are just dominant. Their defense is dominant. Getting 2 fumble recoveries. I think they got an interception, a couple interceptions as well. Let's see, interceptions. Yeah, got an interception as well by D'Angelo Pons. So you has 3 turnovers, and you have 3 turnovers. That's 21 points. So basically, they even without the turnovers, they win by 10. So you pretty much see that it's just a complete dominated performance by the Indiana Hoosiers here. They're 15-0. And as much as I like Miami, right, I want Miami to win. I don't see the Indiana Hoosiers being defeated by Miami this year. Miami's got the best defensive chance against them. Maybe they run the football and hold it close. But I truly feel like the Indiana Hoosiers are going to win the national championship this year. And that is my prediction. Let me know what you guys think. You got Miami or Indiana in the national championship this year. All right, so let's move on from sports and into life coaching today. And I'm Nate, and I'm a life coach. If you didn't know if I'm a life coach, check the life coaching out, if you're interested in that. But this is basically a philosophical question for you here. And does a meaningful life matter more than a happy one? Right. And so, as a person that has traveled around the world and likes to travel and stuff like that, you go see all the monuments in Europe. You see, the Caribbean, you see all this stuff, right? You go look at it and see it. And you look and see who is remembered in history, right? People are remembered for the things they did in history, or the things they built in history, right? So, you know, the pyramids are going to be remembered forever, even if they all get knocked down, right? They'll still be remembered. So, does that meaningful life matter more? Does it matter to be remembered, or does it matter to have a happy life, right? So, and I'll go back to this story. It's a famous story about a billionaire and an Eskimo, right? And so, the billionaire, goes on vacation to Alaska and sees an Eskimo fishing on a fishing boat. And he starts doing the math on how much money the Eskimo would be making with a fishing boat and how he could, obviously being an entrepreneur, how he could expand and make a bunch of money fishing. And basically the Eskimo goes, well, what would be the outcome of each scenario, right? So if I had 10 fishing boats, what would be the outcome? What would be the purpose? And then the billionaire eventually gets to, oh, well, so you could chill on the beach and fish and do whatever you want to. And he says, well, that's what I do every day now, right? So basically, the Eskimo says, I'm basically going to sit here and live happily. Um, I already have everything that life could already bring me, right? So is it better to have meaning or happy? You want to have both, right? So, you don't want to be working at something that's frivolous, that means nothing, that you're just there, you're just that person in the chair. You don't really want that in your life either. You want to have meaning in your life. You want your employment, if you're going to be employed, or your position as CEO, to be something where it makes a difference in somebody's life, right? So that's one of the reasons I do these videos. Even if I only get 5 or 6 people watching, even if I don't get the likes on Instagram and stuff like that, I know that I can make an impact on at least one person, right? And so that brings meaning to my life, and hopefully brings meaning to your life, that I can help you, right? So, but I'm not gonna take time away from my family to do this, right? So I wake up early, I go to the gym early, so that when I get off at 3:30 in the afternoon from my job, I can be with my family, right? And so, and have the happy life that you want, right? So life can be a balance of both, right? So, and there's a lot of people out there. This hustle culture out there is incorrect, right? So, oh, you can grind 8,400 hours a week and get somewhere, and maybe you can for a short time, but that's not sustainable long term. But what is sustainable long term is your habits, your skill set, and your mindset, right? And so if your habit wakes you up early, instead of you staying up to 11, 12 o'clock at night and then sleeping into 8 or 9, 8, and then going to work at 9, I'm up at 4 a.m. I work out, I do videos, all that kind of stuff. Um, run a company, insercell.com. If you haven't checked out insercell.com, make sure you do that. Um, got a couple cool new shirts out if you haven't checked them out. But you do both, right? You have meaning in your life and you live a happy life. That's the way I would do it. That's the way I would set my life up to do it. If you're looking to set your life up where you have meaning and you're happy, then hit me up for life coaching and let's set that up for you, right? All right. So, and then the last thing of the day, of course, is the quote of the day. And it says, the greatest advantage is not intelligence, but the ability to remain composed while others react, right? And so I see this almost every day. Stuff happens to people and they immediately react to it. Very emotional people that, live with their emotions on their sleeves and they can't control their emotions. Um, but, to have the ability to keep your composure and then react is obviously going to benefit you better than immediately reacting, right? So you have to learn to play chess and not checkers, right? So obviously in chess, the best defense is an offense, but at the same time, you have to know how to protect the king, and a lot of that requires you keeping your emotions in check and knowing that most people's opinions don't matter. Um, most people, they aren't making a difference in anybody's life. They aren't uh, living to have meaning in their life. They're not happy. They're miserable, and you can't let their stuff affect you and cause you to have reactions, right? So, um, but it's very good to be smart. But if you can't control your emotions with your intelligence, then it's all useless, right? So And I learned this basically on a baseball field, right? I was a closer in baseball, right? So I would come in, bases loaded, no outs, strike out the side, that kind of stuff. Um, and basically, if you threw one bad pitch, that was going to be the end of the game for us, right? Um, but if you came in and kept your composure, and put it where you were supposed to be, you know, you were untouchable, right? And so that's the way I was, um, most of the time. And so um, that was my greatest advantage, is to be able to stay composed while others react, right? And so keep that in mind, work on that if you know, and the easiest way to do this is to do what I call negative scenarios in your head, right? So say this person's going to say this today, this person's going to say that today, you know, and try to keep your emotion in check, right? Okay, well, what would I do if this person did this? What would I do if this person did that? And sometimes that is what keeps you composed, is basically the ability to go through all these scenarios, and then you haven't seen that scenario. Like, it's not a surprise when you see that scenario, right? So, um, like I say, that bases loaded, no out scenario that I just talked about, I had gone through that scenario in my head hundreds of times. What pitches I'm going to throw, if it was a righty, if it was a lefty, all that kind of stuff. So, like I say, it's mindset, skill set, habits, right? And so, if your mindset is to be prepared, and your habits get you prepared, and your skill sets meet those habits, then you will be successful. I'm Nate, and I'm the Fit Future MD, and I'm a life coach. If you're looking to set your life up where you can have composure in real time, you can have meaning in your life and happiness, and hit me up for life coaching. And we'll make sure you shop at InstaShow.com, pick up a cool inspirational t-shirt. Check out my wife's book, London and the Goo Goo Goo, and Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins. Both available on Amazon. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with somebody that needs it. And we'll see you guys in the next piece.